All right, let's get to our first conversation now. A report by AFDB shows Africa's population is projected to double by 2050 and by 2100, meaning 1 in 3 people on Earth will be African. The report also suggests by 2030, about a quarter of the world's population under the age of 25 will be in or from Africa. Well, let's get to discuss prospects now for Africa's youthful population. Joining us for this conversation is Olaotan Fawehinmi, Associate Director at Micro Media Craft Associates, joining me right here in the studio.
Hi.
Great to have you.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so quite an interesting report there by the AFDB.
Yeah.
Saying that population under the age of 25 will most likely, be from Africa or be in Africa at this time. And definitely the question now is, it looks like the world will also have to depend on our capabilities.
Right.
Quite interesting.
I mean, we saw it coming. Nigeria has very vast youth population, and that's a plus, if you ask me. If we decide to tap into the possibilities, right? Any youthful country or environment that takes advantage of that youthfulness, because that's the point of life where you are most creative, where you can innovate and bring out your inner recesses. So Nigeria has an advantage, and honestly, this is the time that we should look into that capital, that human capital.
So we've seen some countries like, the likes of France and, Germany, they have an aging population, and
absolutely,
it's stressing them out, at this time. So, talk to me about what, Africa should be doing now in countries like Nigeria, knowing fully well that you have this advantage.
Right. So what we should be doing now is looking into this youth population and discovering them, right? I've seen some clips on social media of people who created something in different parts of the nation. You just see that people say give likes on social media, and it ends there. I don't think that will help any nation to grow. We need to fish out people like that and invest into them. Nigeria as a nation now should be thinking of building infrastructure that supports creativity, innovation, because you can never have innovation without infrastructure, right? So if Nigeria really wants to take advantage of the growing population, the growing young population that we have, Nigeria as a nation, the government, they need to begin to invest into infrastructure, research, the energy sector, electricity, power. We have several things that shrink innovation and creativity right now. And if the government can help us to invest into those things, it will really be at our advantage, because we have the population, we have the strength, we have the number. It's now to take advantage of that. Yeah,
I'm definitely, everyone's looking to the government at this time. But talking about, the government, we've seen budgets for education, in major African countries, still under that UNESCO benchmark. I think the UNESCO benchmark is over 20%, of your budget should go towards investment in education. Well, we've seen a lot of single digits investment when we look at the budget, at this time. So can we still make it, with this budget for education?
No, we can't. And if we're going to make any impact in education, the first thing we should be thinking, is to work on the curriculum, to be honest with you. The current education system in Nigeria is very theoretical. We just get to school, see those big books, the handouts, we put them up, and at the end of the day, put them down, get good grades, we're out. Trust me, the reality, what happens outside the school system is completely different from what we are told in school, right? So when there is conscious investment in education system, whereby we are able to, one, introduce, look at developed countries. In school, you'll start learning how to be a creator. By the way, every man is meant to be a creator. But you start when you're in school, not when you go out and you start writing CVs. That's when you realize that you're supposed to be an entrepreneur. It starts when you're young, when you're in school. So the curriculum, there needs to be an introduction into it that allows people,
because I guess the curriculum, we're still trying to find X and solve for X. I wasn't a big fan of maths, but yeah.
So I wasn't going to go there, but you took me there. So we were looking for X, right, for so long. But the truth of the matter is, when you get to the real world, you see that power that you don't have, that telecoms that's not working well, that energy that is not working well, the road system that's not working, that's the X. We actually thought to find X. We didn't know that X are the challenges that we're going to meet when we get to the real world. So the school system, I think it was one of the great minds that said that the school system teaches us what to think and not how to think. So if we begin to invest into the school system, even educators themselves need to learn, need to train that you're not supposed to just bring big books and throw it on the young ones and then they give it back to you, you give them good grades, and we launch them into the world, to the market. And they are there is no employment. And the ones that are even employable, they don't have employment. And then a chunk of that are not even employable. So going back to the X, the curriculum has to change. It has to be more practical. It has to be more hands-on. From school, we should know who can create, who is, you have a lot of people who are better. I studied quantity surveying. Ask me what I was doing there.
Solving for X.
But I came out and I realized, no, I'm not built for this. I'm built for marketing comms. But how many Nigerian young people discover that? You just find a lot of round holes and we're putting square pegs into them. So if we go back to this X thing and the investment into education, there needs to be a turnaround. The government needs to help us to build our schools. And when I say build, I'm not talking about the structures. I'm talking about the people, what they go there to learn, because it is what they get that they give out when they come out of school.
Right. And definitely, we do keep talking about what the government has to do at this time. But take, for instance, the government is not going to do it. Where do we go?
I like that. Thank you very much. So the issue of revamping the system, the economy, I've always said that. Look at the labor survey by labor force survey by NBS. The last one, Q3 2023, was at 5% unemployment. It's going to go up by Q4. That's a given. How do we solve this problem? It cuts across. The government has to play their part, and we've been talking about the government for some minutes now. The private sector have a part to play. They need to work with the institutions and bring real life to the schools and not just putting textbooks up there and putting them down. The schools have a part to play. The educators also have to learn what applies in developed countries, what they do, what has worked for them, how they have grown, how they are practical, how you see young children in some schools, they're not running around the streets or they are not going to church to pray. I'm not against praying, but they are creating stuff, they are coupling stuff. That's where we need to get to. Now, come to the youth themselves, which is the question you have asked. You need to find yourself. And I say it every time. Every person, every young person has a gift, has that thing they can create. Everyone is meant to be a creator. And when this happens, you realize that you're not going to come out of school writing CVs. You'll probably come out of school, and after a couple of years, people will be writing CVs to you because they want to work with you or work for you. And that's where we are meant to be. So if we have a chunk of Nigerian youth who are not thinking of coming out and writing CVs, who are thinking of coming out and creating things, then we're going to have at least you're going to help your own economy, then you help the economy of your environment. Just like you said, what if the government doesn't do anything? Then we have to stand up for ourselves. We have to do something for ourselves. So I keep advocating that as young people, we cannot wait for the government. Find yourself. Ask yourself, what can I do? Growing up, I realized that I was good at writing. And then from writing to writing copies to comms to marketing to digital, here we are today. So it's a step after another. But that is where we need to be. Don't depend on the government. You've gone to school taught you what to think, and then you have to now teach yourself. Most of these skills are available on the internet. Though,
I'm talking about the internet. There is a cost of living crisis.
Absolutely, I was going to say that.
It's getting more expensive
Exactly.
to even afford data. So we see most of the youths actually struggling financially.
Yeah.
At this time, and they're also trying to get this knowledge,
right?
Going forward. How do you balance that? Knowing that you don't even know where you're going to get the next meal.
Exactly. So, which is why I said it's a collective responsibility. If the government helps with infrastructure, and we get to the point where data is cheaper, then we now need to have youths who are serious-minded, who are not going to use that internet looking for what
we get the telecom people are already talking about increasing tariffs, at this time.
So it's getting worse. So it goes back to, because if we have a stable economy, you would, as the telecoms wouldn't have a reason to take up, to increase tariff, right? So that's why I say no matter the conversation, we're still going to go back. You see, the challenge with asking the government is everybody's looking at Abuja, everybody's looking at Aso Rock, and that's where the problem is. Aso Rock cannot solve the problem of every street in Nigeria. We have local government chairmen. We have LCDAs. We have, there's a federal government, and it comes down to state, and then it comes down to local government, and it comes down to wards, then it comes down to streets and all of that.
But we're all always looking at the big guy.
Yes, and it's not going to happen. So we should move our focus. Those people closest to us at the local government, are we holding them accountable? What are they giving back to the society? Do we have access to funding at whatever level? So you have some NGOs, some private companies doing these things in trickles. They're helping like 5, 10, but we're talking of over 200 million people, and you have some very significant percentage of it being youth. So how many does 5 and 10? What does that help?
Right.
So there has to be a big picture. Task every local government to take responsibility of their area and the people there. If it's bigger than you, you move it to the state. If it's bigger than the state, you move it to the federal government. That's how it works. But we're all looking at the federal government, and it's not going to happen. The federal government can attend to 200 million people.
Right. But from where you're looking, at this time, we're still looking at 2030.
Right.
So what do you think?
It has to be a long time.
Yeah, I know it's a long time, but how should the average youth be thinking, right now before we get there?
So before we get there, an average youth, I say that look into yourself. You have something inside of you. You said the thing, and I don't know, I think it's the introduction of technology, right? And then it helps you to see what other people are doing. We're so quick to see where they have gotten to. We don't take time to watch their story, the struggle, how they got there. There is no human being that you see today. In fact, as even age, you don't get born and then you're 40 and then you're 50. It's the same thing with growth, with whatever you do, right? You start with there's this thing I always say. I say, start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. It's a mantra I always give.
Right.
Start where you are.
Just start where you are.
Just start where you are. I mean, writing started with, and I hate to use myself as an example, but you're in school, your friends tell you, oh, I want to, boarding school, I want to write a letter to my parents. Can you help me check if it's good? That's a signal. Something is telling you that you're good at that thing, and your friends are paying attention to it. They're asking you to solve that problem for us. When I was in secondary school, I had a friend who would write list of Bible societies that will, when you do an exam, they send you some questions, you write the exam, they will send you a big Bible Society of Nigeria. At that time in secondary school, several years ago, he was selling every address to us at 5 naira. That was entrepreneurship.
Right
we
there.
didn't know, right there. So when they give you money to go to school, rather than use it to buy fish, you would buy one address and maybe take garri without fish.
And you see those guys come out later and they're billionaires.
Exactly. That's where it starts.
Right.
So and let me come to parents. Parents are afraid, which is normal. They think that if young people in school are thinking entrepreneurship, it will affect academics. They will not have good grades. It's fine to have good grades. That's where we come in as parents to help them balance. So in the morning you go to school, in the evening when you come back, you put 1 or 2 hours into your craft. Because for all you care, are you aware that there are organizations right now that are encouraging their staff to have side hustles? Yes, as long as it's not conflict of interest. So if I'm into marketing communications, I have a company, you're my staff, you can't do marketing communications, but you can sell shoes. Because that gives you an extra source of income. They're not even expecting you to depend on salary.
And workers need a lot of side hustles.
You know what you're paying, the energy bill, school fees. You need multiple streams of income. So if you start from school, it grows with you. And you know, so if you start a tree, if you plant a tree today, you know what it will be in 20 years. That's how it is.
So we'll just start now.
Just start now,
basically.
with
Thank
whatever
you so
have.
much. It was great having your perspective today, Mr. Olaotan
Fawehinmi,
Associate Director at Media Craft Associates. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.